Hi everybody. Hello. Hi. We're going to begin in about a minute because I want to make sure I have people, I give you guys some time to get on before we begin the actual reading. So let's see, we have viewers, we have comments. Let's see if we can get some. There we go. Let's see. Now this is going to be the reading of EOS, Dawn of the Atlantis Grail, Book 1. This is so exciting. I'm so excited, you guys, because we're starting a whole new journey into a new prequel series, and it's going to feature some of the things you already know about the Atlantis Grail, but it will also have some new things, and you'll be like, oh, this is interesting. This is how it connects to the original series. So here we go. We're going to see, let's see if we can, I want to make sure that I can actually see your comments. So there we go. I think I can see some. Alrighty. Hi. I can see a comment from Sarah. There's Nancy. Hi, Nancy. Thank you, guys. You're helping me. When I see comments, hi, Kathleen, Sherry. When you make, hi, Mary. When you guys make the comments, I'm sure that it's going. So if you guys can tell me if I sound okay, then we're gonna start. So is it all good? Somebody let me know if we're all clear and if you guys can hear me, because that's the most important part. Okay, alrighty. So who is ready? Say yay if you're ready. Let me know if you're ready to go. Okay, so counting down, we're going to start the reading. We're beginning with Book 1 of EOS, Dawn of the Atlantis Grail. Chapter 1. Here we go. Earth, 10,504 BCE, January, month of Setayet. Before the world falls apart, before the gods send us death and destruction, it all begins quietly with mushrooms. I chop mushrooms. I have only one accursed job, and it is dreary, monotonous, and without end. It is not even dawn when my daily shift begins in the warehouse district of Poseidon, great city of sacred circles, imperial seat of all power of Atlantis, in one of the immense climate-controlled kitchen pantries of Chiprahat exquisite foods. From the dismal darkness of fourth hour of Ra until noon, I stand leaning over a long table lined with industrial cutting boards, racks of cook knives of all sizes, and enormous wooden bowls filled with different fungi varieties. The mushrooms range from the cheapest commonplace round buttons and many-headed wild bunches to the ones with slim stalks and wide-brimmed hats and everything in between. Some are formed in elegant tiled colonies or exhibit patterns of divine symmetry found in sacred temple architecture, so we're told. And yet, it's the most ugly and misshapen ones, resembling earthly lumps that are priceless. And my duty is to handle all of them accordingly, in their own particular ways. On both sides of me are other workers, mostly women, girls, and underage boys. and we constantly elbow each other by accident since we're packed together like locusts with little room to move. Minor accidents happen, but because we deal with sharp knives, everyone soon learns to handle their cutters with skill. You either learn precision and dexterity or lose this job. That's because the workroom is sterile, something akin to being thoroughly cleansed by the gods. And there are strict rules. Cool, moist air of a precise temperature conducive to mushroom well-being, and fortunately ours, is pumped into the room. We all have to be cleansed at the entrance and wear uniform aprons and hair caps of strange fancy linen. Anyone who cuts themselves enough to draw blood has to abandon their cutting board and contaminated batch of mushrooms, leave the shift, and lose the remaining day's pay. Yes, you can come back the next day with a proper sterile bandage, but you've just earned your first reprimand, and each worker only gets 3 before they're dismissed permanently. The pantry is brightly lit with overhead orb lights. A few hovering orbs can be called at need to provide focused, bright illumination during particularly delicate tasks. The thick smell of loamy, pungent earth, rich with mycelium spores, fills my nostrils every time I enter. Other overseers stroll through the pantry every few minutes, observing us work and needlessly reminding us to pick up speed to meet our quotas. Upon the hour, every hour, announced loudly by the overseers, delivery workers arrive from the specialty mushroom farms and grow houses with fresh new containers to refill the dwindling contents of our bowls. They remove our finished chopped batches. Accursed, never-ending mountains of mushrooms. Bastet, forgive me for thinking ill of my blessed source of livelihood. Blessed mushrooms. Is that better, Holy Bast? Once sorted, a few remain here on the storage shelves for aging and drying. The rest are taken away from the facility. Some will go to the local exclusive high-end eateries to be prepared into artisanal delicacies for the wealthy restaurant and grocery patrons. Others end up in the industrial kitchens next door for the mass production stage. Of their final fates, I am not quite certain. By the end of my shift, not only are my wrists and fingers in pain, my back aching, but my lungs are choked with the pungent mushroom miasma which fills the room. Why don't they use automated machinery to cut these precious and accursed things, one wonders. Because human labor is cheaper than the proper upkeep of industrial tech. And so, the girls and women around me moan with weariness as we clean up for the day, put away our knives, and prepare the work surfaces for the second shift that will arrive here at first hour of Ke and stay until the night darkness of 9th hour. That darkness is inevitable. Whichever shift you get, you either arrive with it or depart into it. Let's see where we are. Often, we curse our fates, just as much as we thank the gods for giving us free employment in an air-conditioned room, as opposed to serfdom or slavery. In addition, many of us curse the enforcement of the new rules of humane consumption that require the whole of Poseidon's sacred circles, and indeed the whole mortal world, to only consume plants, fruits and vegetables, fungi, legumes, and the seeds of the earth. Humanity is no longer permitted to eat meat. Hence, the mushrooms, a rich source of flavorful protein to substitute the flesh of beasts and cover our nutritional needs. What is protein? What are nutritional needs? Supposedly, it's what alleviates hunger and keeps us alive. I know little about it, only what we've been told by the learned ones, the singing voice techs who run all the machines in all of Atlantida on behalf of the elites and the Imperial Cassiopeia dynasty. I often wish I knew more, but then, as grandmother says, with most things in this world, I would probably end up knowing just enough to regret it. Besides, schools are not for the likes of us, and neither are mushrooms. Everything started a few years ago when they arrived, the gods. And I don't mean our current divine rulers, the Imperial Cassiopeia. May their ancient dynasty name be eternally blessed as far back and forward as it goes unto the ages. But the others, these others, nameless golden gods of light, dropped from the vault of Ra's heaven like flaming stars and taught us all this. Taught is the wrong word. They forcibly insisted we make the changes in our lives upon pain of punishment and destruction. Even our divine imperial rulers had to attend to them, since they too are only men like the rest of us, regardless of what the priests teach. Was it only 4 years? It feels like it's been a lifetime since the last time I ate a proper bite of goat's meat stew or skewered and charred pieces of lamb. Not even rabbit or rodent flesh is allowed. No fish from the ocean, no insects, nothing that moves of its own accord or visibly suffers when killed or harvested. And least of all, bulls or cows. Those were already half sacred, and the occasional partaking of their flesh was reserved for the rich and noble, even before the golden gods upturned our world. Amurabia, my grandmother, insists it's indeed been 1/4 of my lifetime since the golden gods came. I can only count on my fingers and toes, so I'm not quite sure what that means as far as my own age. I might be 16 summers, but only 15 winters, because I was born soon after harvest time, which, according to Amurabia, makes me 16 years old. 10 fingers and 6 toes, that much is certain. All I know is that I may already be of an age to marry, which sickens me. I dread the thought of leaving our poor but familiar home. I would be leaving Amurabia and little Urumer, my 7-year-old baby brother, and that stupid, useless Guzum, our misfortunate father, whose name I refused to say more than once, and going with some smelly goat of a man to live in a strange hovel with his family and clean up his filth after him, in addition to letting him run inside me and fill me with pitiful children. So instead I choose to chop and carve and grate and eviscerate mushrooms, for which I thank Bast and praise Bast and occasionally misuse her name during cursing. Forgive me, holy Bastetto, whose glory shines brightly. And I remind myself of my fortune every time I wake up in the abysmal pre-morning darkness and hurry through the treacherous streets in the uttermost circles of Poseidon, traveling inward to Circle 8 and the sprawling Chiprahat building. The alternative to chopping mushrooms would be a much darker fate. I know it will catch up with me at some point. Yes, I will be sold to a smelly man-goat or boy-goat, but not just yet. Amurabia is still Mamra, still the mistress of our household, no matter that it's tiny and impoverished. And my pathetic father must listen to her or be denied the sharing of our home. Since my mother, Ageti, became deathly ill and boarded the depot of eternity during last year's great plague, he has no claims left upon us. As a provider, he's sadly lacking, and his random work in the markets is as unreliable as the weather outside Poseidon's outer circle boundary. We're lucky if he brings a single metal coin every 3 days. Amurabia would have to choose to sell me herself, and she would not do so, I'm certain, since she cherishes us dearly. My little brother and myself are all that remains of her departed daughter. And besides, both Urumer and I work well, and we bring in metal coins every day. I do the mushrooms, while Uru runs errands around the marketplace districts on foot or using his cheap coverboard. Amurabia would be an old fool to dismiss either of us for a one-time lump sum. And if she is gone and remains up to my no-good father, he might still choose to rely on my steady earnings. Why do I dwell on this? Am I worried? No, not in the least. At least for now. I trust the secure household of my grandmother. May she live longer than the Imperator. Holy Bastet, hear me. I spit 3 times upon the ground to distract the evil Shah eye. And the solid meal we have every day as a family. All things considered, the mushroom work is tolerable. Admittedly, at some point I actually hope to taste for myself the miraculous mushroom meat they make for the noble and rich. Yes, I've never eaten mushrooms, despite knowing every fungi variety and precisely how to handle each kind. Furthermore, I've never stolen a single mushroom, even though some girls who work my shift have done so, I'm certain, such as Jigudin or the shameless Labat, who has a hidden pouch in her skirt. Because I cannot risk this job, and because I don't steal. It's a matter of pride in my family. Grandmother taught me and Uru well. We may be poor, but we never stoop to the dishonor. Thus, our own protein needs are met by commonplace beans, peas, lentils, and grains, and our honor remains intact. Until today. Today is when everything changes, and it's all my fault. Actually, the fault lies in my propensity to daydream and make up stupid stories in my head even as I work. I'm conscientious and quick with my fingers, but the monotony of moving the knife puts me in a stupid daze. Luckily, the knife motions have become second nature, and I've never cut myself, but I spend most of my shift chopping in a dream, such as now. Sometimes I pretend I'm a skilled warrior, going to battle with supernatural enemies whose flesh is formed of mushrooms, so I can defeat them with a few carefully placed slices. I focus on each mushroom I'm handling and visualize each as a tiny soldier in miniature armies. Die, you filthy, mangy minion of Shaitunat! The many-headed, tiny mushroom clusters become military divisions of hovering chariots, and I carefully chop each limb. Chop, chop, separating them from the great mycelium network that connects them all beneath the earth and defeating the monstrous Shah from the underworld. Die, you who are most foul with the unholy breath of jackals! These pieces I arrange in funeral pyres, storage containers, and pretend they must face the death gods in the subterranean infernos kitchens. And when I work with the precious and expensive misshapen lands of the black turufili mushrooms, they must be grated finely, not chopped. I imagine frightful and yet sorrowful Nephi giants who once walked the earth, and how they're turned into sand by my all-powerful hand. So, it's what I'm doing right now, this very heartbeat. Story dreaming while awake, barely an hour into my work shift, when suddenly I start, pulled out from my nonsense reveries because my name is being called. Simi! I blink and look up, but don't stop moving the turufili chunk back and forth against the blade of the grater. Simi, you're bleeding! The loud whisperer is Odira, the older woman working directly to my right, whose deep brown skin is several shades darker than my own light brown. At once I pause. I stare at my fingers, examine the black lump of fungus which is worth more than our entire house. The sharp grating surface. Huh? No, I'm not. Yes, you are. Odira continues whispering. She motions with her hand to my back. Huh? What? I frown. Your moon flow. Check the back of your garments. My what? Oh. At once, I twist my waist, turning around in my cramped spot and glare at the part of my skirt behind me. I see a small red spot forming in the old sackcloth fabric. Ah, bast! No, not now! My body has chosen to enact its female function, and somehow I didn't even feel it starting. In fact, I still don't feel it. What is happening, Bast? At what time during this ungodly morning did I even have time to sit down long enough to stain the skirt? Was it when I gulped water and stuffed dried chunks of yesterday's lentil pottage in my mouth? Regardless, I forgot to note the moon cycle days because, again, I can't count properly. And haven't worn my bunched rags between my legs as I normally would. What a sorry mess I made. Bastet. Just then I hear the voice of the shift overseer approaching. You, he says. Stop all work. You're contaminated. Go home and come back next week when the moon flow is over. But, I begin to retort. This particular overseer is a small, hard-faced man with the shadow of a sneer around his mouth as he speaks. He's definitely not one of my favorites and not someone to argue with. You are fortunate that we allow common, unskilled girls such as yourself to work here, he reminds me. You now have one reprimand, your first, as I recall the work records. Remember your great fortune to be employed in this establishment, and go home. If I have to repeat myself, I will give you a second reprimand. Silently I nod, lower my gaze, and step away from the work table, while the other women on both sides give me pitying stares. I've just lost a week's worth of pay due to my own carelessness and exposed myself to disdain. Women's flow time is considered an unclean time, and any opportunity to remind the men of its existence does not serve any of us well. Disdain I can live with, but lack of coins? Bastet, help me. I leave my industrial apron and hair covering at the doors and exit the sprawling building into the pre-dawn darkness. I spit several times at the dust on the ground of the industrial street to ward off any evil Shah spirits that might have decided to attach themselves to me since I'm bleeding. A cool night wind blows in my face and tugs at my tight curls of hair. Soon, Ra, sacred disk, will breach the horizon with light, but the orb lights and occasional live torches still glow, the former with artificial gold and the latter with living orange flame in the posts lining the street. Other large buildings and warehouses make up this lonely industrial row on the outer edge of Sacred Circle 8. And now I must walk in the dawn twilight all the way home. No one is out, not even the hovering billboards that begin making their slow sailing passes through the city streets at dawn. For the most part, this area is not on their automated itineraries. The cheap transport carts don't show up in this district until next hour, and I can't afford fare for a fancy hovering bus without getting paid at the end of my shift. I don't often bother with public transportation, since coins don't come easy. Besides, I love brisk walking, even though it's a long way, and I have to cross a residential circle and 2 canal bridges to get to the outskirts where we live. Sacred Circle 10, also known as Denwen's Pit. We locals refer to our portion of the circle as the armpit. There's also the crotch, located directly on the opposite side, but we don't talk about it. Amurabia is going to be so disappointed at me today. Not as much as I am with myself. I hurry along the mostly lonely street. It's almost dawn now, sometime between shifts. And those who work in this district are either already at their work sites or else they haven't begun to arrive yet. Fortunately, it's not too dangerous to be out and about here, And besides, I can run like the wind, and I dare anyone to catch me. As I'm about to pass one alley, however, I hear uncommon noise up ahead. It's particularly dark here, midway between two distant light posts illuminating the street. And there it comes, a sharp cry, then several voices raised, and the sounds of a rough struggle. "Let go of me!" a young boy or a girl yells. "Not until the old man pays," an older male voice sounds in reply. I slow down my pace. Then I freeze, considering my next course of action. Whatever filthy transaction is happening in that alley, it is none of my business. Not that I would attempt to intervene or help anyone. No, that would be insanity. I'll leave that to the city guard, though they rarely patrol here and won't bother to show up until promptly unless called by warehouse management. Instead, I focus on what would be my best way of going around this unfortunate incident without being noticed. Bast help me. If I backtrack halfway between these two buildings, I can try diving into that other alley I just passed earlier. Or maybe I can just cross the street here and then creep along the perimeter of the buildings and run across this alley, but on the opposite side. If a hard crime is being committed, they might still see me, and naturally they can't have a witness. Just as all manner of violent images fills my stupid head, I see a dark streak flying past me down the street in the same direction as I'm going. The hover rider, cloak flapping behind them, turns directly into the alley. I barely see a flash of orichalcum metal along the long edge of the board, a form-fitting suit of iridescent glimmering black, and the streamlined shape of the rider, almost lying flat, parallel to the board's length, controlling it skillfully with the lower body. The man, or boy, leans sharply into the corner, one foot anchored in the hoverboard stirrup, as he disappears down the alley. 3 heartbeats later, I hear fighting noises. Men landing blows, objects striking, possibly fighting sticks, sounds of a tussle, more yells. Then I see a small, wiry boy and 2 girls come pounding out of the alley, closely followed by an older man who has a bloodied face and what looks like to be a broken nose. I don't think he was the one threatening a child. Rather, he must be with them, the one who was referred to as old man. Their father, maybe? All I know is these people are running like all the underworld shaitunat is after them, while I remain frozen a few steps away and the fighting is still going on in the alley. No one else is on this stretch of street with us, no one to offer additional help. I tell myself, no, Semi, no. I'm prudent enough not to interfere even now. And yet, curiosity pulls at me, and so I sneak the few steps forward and plaster myself against the limestone wall of the building at the corner. Very carefully, I peek inside the alley and observe an amazing sight. The man in shimmering black, or boy, or shy in human form, on the hoverboard, straddling it with practiced military ease, is single-handedly fighting 5 people. A mix of men and boys, rough and dirty, strike at him with sticks and long knives, even as he maneuvers easily out of the way, making short whistling tones to direct his hoverboard a few feet off the ground. And then he lashes out at them with his black-gloved hands and a 3-tiered short metal staff that he spins before him, around him, over and under, so fast that it blurs in motion like a wind farm propeller. It occurs to me that his sparkling black cloak should get in his way at some point, as it sweeps around him in dramatic fashion, but then I see that it also hovers, acting like an armor layer of sorts, an additional barrier between him and the opponents. Must be lined on the underside with orichalcum fabric. Whoever this person is, they must be rich. I stare mesmerized at the hover rider's fluid movements, deadly and skilled in combat. Why does this individual seem so familiar? Where have I seen this type of sleek black outfit? Dark as Nyctos, yet alive with the sparkle of stars, and that shoulder-length mane of equally dark hair. No, it can't be. I've seen him on the video screen, on our old media box. To be precise, there's this popular story feed that Amurabi and her neighbor women friends, and even Uru, love to watch midweek, every Ra day evening. The love life of the man in the Nyctos cloak. That's the ridiculous title of the rogue network independent show that half of Poseidon raves over, now in its 3rd season. And the popularity is only growing. Supposedly it's some anonymous guy funding the whole thing out of his own purse, as he himself plays a romantic hero. With very small casts of play actors in a short weekly episode. Normally I avoid it because of the stupidity of the premise. It is always the man in the Nyctos cloak caught in bed with a new woman or man every night, and he has to fend off the husband or wife or other lover without ever getting out of bed to do it. Yeah, that's the gimmick. I roll my eyes violently, trying not to wrench them from the sockets just thinking about it. The man in the Nyctos cloak never quite shows his full face to the camera, but apparently he is young and handsome, and quite handsome, judging from the brief flash glimpses of his beautiful features that the audience gets every week. Trying to get a new glimpse of his face when he's not masked, even just a new angle on his features, is part of the challenge and appeal of the show. That and the passionate lovemaking in the first portion of each episode, during which there are frequent glimpses of his perfectly chiseled abs and chest, his toned shoulders, muscular arms, and so much more. The moans, the steamy sighs, the barely stifled cries of desire, and that's just the women in our living room watching the hot action. In all that, the man in the Nyctos cloak always wears clothing made of the same shimmery reflective black fabric, while the garment itself changes slightly. Even if he disrobes, there's always his elegant black cloak. It's cast aside nearby so that he appears completely unclothed under the silken sheets, with nothing but his lustrous black hair to cover him, and his lover of the moment, usually a new female play actor in every particular episode. Amurabia and the women adore him. His mysterious looks, his cleverness, his honey-smooth low voice. In fact, I'm quite certain that the voice alone makes up the bulk of the attraction. It definitely makes all of them melt as they stare and whisper and giggle when he utters sweet and very dirty words to his partner. I have to endure this nonsense every week under my own roof for a quarter of an hour. Ugh. Why must we be among the few in this part of Hoveltown with a working media box and screen? Amurabia is far too indulgent of our neighbors. She should be charging them per viewing, I tell her often. Or they can go watch the newer and much better media box unit, 3 hovels down, over at Bayadi's place. And then there's the other thing, a much more interesting thing. The man in the Nyctos cloak fights. He always pulls out some incredible, clever weapon and uses it to vanquish or beat off the jealous attacker who comes to interrupt his love tryst from his bed without getting up. I admit I turn to watch those few final moments when their running ends and the fighting happens. Just for the clever moves, just to see what he would do and how he would escape possible death, or at least a whole lot of pain and a beating. When it's all over, and the enemy has either fled or lies knocked out nearby, the man in the Nyctos cloak kisses his amazed and duly impressed lover farewell, then summons an expensive hoverboard to the bedside. We never see him actually get on it because the screen darkens as the episode ends. It is followed by some stupid commercial from that week's sponsor. And that's the love life of the man in the Nyctos cloak summed up. That same exact hoverboard, that garment fabric, those martial arts moves, I recognize all of it now as I find myself peeking inside the alley. No, I've not gone mad. This is happening. This is real. With a pounding pulse, tense and ready to flee in a heartbeat, I watch the action in the alley. Just a few intense moments pass, and the hover rider in black dispatches all 5 of his opponents. 2 of the biggest men lie motionless on the ground, while the other 3, younger boys, take off, running, and scatter deeper into the alley. The hover rider whistles a tone sequence, and his hoverboard obeys, turning him around smoothly and tilting him nearly upright. Simultaneously, he flips and folds his tri-segment weapon in on itself, using just one hand, then hides it in the folds of his clothing. Immediately, I shrink back against the wall of the corner building, trying to make myself small, coiled like a spring in anticipation of running. If I'm lucky, he might just pass by without noticing me at all. So if I don't run, it might be better. But no, it's too late. He's seen me. The hover rider reaches the mouth of the alley and turns his head to look directly at me. He wears no mask, and his features are visible in their entirety. Lucky me. I offer up an eye roll heavenward to any deities who might be watching. Not sure what I expected, but I see the lean face of an undeniably good-looking young man framed by longish dark hair. His sharp gaze strikes me with a focused scrutiny. In the near darkness, far from the streetlights, I barely catch the liquid flash and color of his eyes. They're neither black, nor brown, nor blue. Some kind of a lighter shade, possibly tawny green, possibly off-gray. Hard to tell in this pre-dawn dusk. Whatever it is, those eyes are not the kind I expect to forget. And not only because of the color. Arrogant, supremely confident, mocking. Nefero EOS, you saw nothing, he tells me in passing, even as I stare like a dumbstruck fool. You should get lost before the guard arrives. And he flashes me a grin full of healthy white teeth. Busted that voice. Now I recognize it without a doubt. Yes, it's him. He is the man in the Nyctos cloak, the play actor, play idiot, whoever. He has to be. Nefero EOS, I reply stupidly. But the man in the Nyctos cloak is already many paces away and leaning into the wind as his hoverboard now rises above street level. In moments, he disappears out of sight into the rosy dawn lightning sky. I stand gawking in his wake. Then I head home. Grandmother is not going to believe this. Chapter 2. When I finally turn into our narrow, dirt-packed slum, lined with squat, ugly hovels of baked clay and limestone, and arrive at the 5th hovel on the left, it is full morning. The sky is bright blue, and Ra's disk is beginning its vaulted journey towards noon zenith. Probably a mild day is coming, since it's Setayet, the first month, after all, and the winter is almost behind us. Here on the outskirts of Poseidon, great and glorious capital of Imperial Atlantida, eternal Atlantis, greatest empire on earth, and so on and so forth. Best forgive me if I begin to gag at the usual acolytes when so little of the bounty actually falls upon us. The effects of weather control are less noticeable than in the city center. So yes, we get more chills in the winter and more heat in the summer than the far more fortunate residents of the inner circles, especially the elites at the imperial heart of all things. I pause briefly outside the wooden door of our crumbling home and wave to a neighbor woman who is hanging up laundry on her roof. "Aren't you back early today?" she yells down at me, snapping and flapping some ragged linen sheets. "Yes, they made me go home," I yell back. "Mood flow." "Ah," the woman says with immediate sympathy. "May the gods take pity and may it end soon." "Chuvu, Bobby," I say, nodding. From your mouth to divine ears. Hope you're right. I need the coins. Don't we all? Bobby finishes and goes back to drying her laundry. I start to fiddle with a door latch when I hear Amurabia's ringing voice from indoors. Sammy? Is that you, girl? Yes, Mama. I holler back, fighting with the stuck latch. Old junk metal has rusted and is also bent. We need to get it fixed. It's me. I'm coming in. But Amurabia is hard of hearing, so she yells again. Sammy? Uru! Who is it? Who is at the door? I'm coming now. I have a poker stick straight from the coals. Mama, it's Sammy! I cry, rattling the door now. Who is it? Ah, crap of a goat, Mama. Come to the door and help me open this thing. It's Sammy. Semirameos, your granddaughter. Did you latch the door again from the inside? At this point, I'm yelling at the top of my lungs and I can hear the neighbor laughing on the roof. Seriously, how many times do I have to tell grandmother not to latch the door from the inside before noon? Both Uru and I need it to be open, since we come and go at all hours, especially Uru. Finally, the door opens and Amurabia, old, skinny and short, with copper brown wrinkled skin and a rag kerchief around her gray head of frizzy hair, looks up at me with startled reproach. Oh, Sammy, why aren't you at work? I walk past her inside our dark living room and then twist and lift the fabric at the back of my skirt to show her the red spot. Amurabia squints and shakes her head. Did you wear a linen underneath that? A linen sheath underneath that? She asked curtly. I frown with annoyance. Of course, I always wear the underskirt just in case. I just forgot the rags. But Amurabia shakes her head again. Let me see. She leans closer, lifts up my coarse skirt fabric, and sure enough, I have my linen liner shift underneath. No blood, she says. No moon flow. My mouth falls open. But, child, you've been made a fool, my sharp-thinking grandmother says, raising her warm brown eyes at me with pity. Someone used your skirt as a towel. The outer skirt. Probably cut themselves and quickly covered it up, but first had to clean up in a hurry. Bastet! I cursed loudly. No wonder I didn't feel anything. Must be one of the whore bitches who worked next to me. Wonder which one. Don't invoke Bast's holy name in vain, Amurabia tells me patiently, and not for the first time, since I tend to run hot with a foul mouth. And don't insult hard-working whores. Their job is harder than yours and mine. I lost a week of pay because of some lying mangy she-goat, I continue. I'm going back there. I will tell the overseer. Have him check all the bitches' fingers. Those on both sides of me and the ones next to them too. Amurabia nods. You do that, but tomorrow. It's too late now. By the time you return to Chiprahat, the shift will be over. But you go in early tomorrow and explain. I bet it's Odira, I continue fuming. She's the one who pointed it out to me. Told me I'm bleeding. Or it could be that green-haired red-ass baboon, Labat. Or Jigudin. Don't waste your breath, Amurabia says, patting my arm. Come, girl. I'll find something for you to do here. You can help me win the yarn. Grandmother is a skilled seamstress and works from home, so her workroom corner is always overflowing with fabrics and hemp yarn from neighborhood clients. I nod and we go through the front living room into the smaller of the two rooms in the back, where Amurabia works and sleeps. Our house only has 3 rooms. The low-ceilinged living room is the largest, with a long sitting bench from which we watch the story feeds and where our father sleeps at night, the infamous media box on the opposite wall, and the table in the corner. The other 2 rooms are Amurabia's tiny bedroom and workroom, and my and Uru's bedroom. Behind the house, under an overhang, we have an outdoor kitchen with a fire pit and an ancient blackened grill grate that Amurabia inherited from her own mother's household. Beyond it, our small enclosed yard is crammed with tiers and rows of growing pots filled with earth and vegetables. No mushrooms, of course, since that requires a permit and the specialty grower's license, not to mention we don't have the proper soil or the humidity-controlled enclosure. Meanwhile, our roof is a large flat area which has even more planters full of growing herbs and more vegetables and can be used as an additional open-air room when the weather permits. Up there, there's also a narrow enclosed cabin stall where we shower under running water, wash our laundry, and use the drain as an elimination latrine. The water pipe from the common well that reaches this blessed row of hovels is a true luxury here in the slum. Not everyone is near a well. The long drain pipe runs down from the roof into the ground beneath the house and then ends up in the public sewer that serves our street. An additional sewer drain is in the corner of the yard on ground level with a hollow seat on top. To get up onto the roof, we use a ladder from the backyard. It is secured between the small apricot tree and the wall for safety. We have a second fruit tree, but it grows sour lemons, so it might as well be a useless shrub as far as I'm concerned. I yell at it often as I walk past its useless trunk. Why couldn't it be an olive or a fig? Thank Bass we have the apricot at least. Just as Amorabia and I disappear into her workroom, we hear the front door rattle once again. Then Uru's boyish voice calls out, "Mema! Mema! Are you home?" My younger brother Urumer calls out urgently. There's a world of excitement in his voice. Amorabia pauses her slightly limping walk and gathers a deep breath. She then hollers past me, loud enough to blow my ears off. "Since when am I not home at this hour? Open the door, boy. It's open. It's open," I said. "He heard you, Mema," I say, tapping her on the shoulder. Moments later, Urumer rattles the door open, slams it behind him, and rushes into the workroom, panting and out of breath. My little brother Uru is annoying and adorable at the same time, with his wild waves of dark brown hair that he always forgets to tie up in a proper tail, his big brown eyes, perfect falcon wing brows, and pretty long lashes. He still has a long way to grow before he comes close to my height. Yes, I'm a little taller than the average girl. Bass be praised. I can reach tall shelves. But at some point he will pass me, and then the girls will start swooning after him. Thankfully, that's a long way off, and he's still a skinny, wiry child who can run very fast and who likes to climb everything. Trees, ladders, rooftops, city posts. Uru also likes to bring everyone the latest news, which makes sense for his job as messenger and courier. It is often the first to spread gossip all over the street, such as now. "Semi, how come you're home?" he mumbles, noticing me, then immediately forgets and turns to Amorabia. "Mema, I have big news. So bad, so bad." "What is it, child? What's so bad?" Amorabia asks blandly, humoring him as she turns away and begins to open her fabric boxes on the work table. But Uru glances from me to her with wide eyes. He begins to tug my shirt in excitement and then rattles off. "Just came back from the old fish market, and there was this huge digital billboard flying in. Big as a wall. Looked like it came from the circle interior, from some rich circles, not our kind. It stopped in the middle clearing, and then it turned on to an Imperial channel. I'm talking full announcement mode." Amorabia briefly glances at him. "Is that so?" "Go on," I add. "It started to play the Imperial hymn so loud that everyone in the market shut up and stopped what they were doing. Even Makar's pile stall got quiet. You know that's crazy, right? Anyway," I shake my head slightly and chuckle. "Yes, go on." "Yeah, and so," Uru stumbles and picks up his story. "So then there was blessed Churu, his face big as a wall, his crown shining with all the gold around him. And he said that the other gods are angry at us. 5 years ago they warned us to obey, and now they are coming back to punish us because we didn't. They are sending a giant skyrock ahead of them. The skyrock is going to fall on us, and there will be death and pain and tears. So many tears that they will turn to rivers, and the rivers will turn to mountains and flood us. All right, what nonsense now, child? Hammurabi interrupts. I really doubt the blessed Imperator said anything of the sort. What was the real message? And before you exaggerate, think what I told you about making up pointless lies. But Uru's face gets a hurt look and he wails. No, Mema! He really said that. Mountains of tears and big water like a mountain and... Come on, Uru, I speak. Okay, whatever. What else did he say? My little brother scrunches up his face and frowns, quieting stubbornly. Urumer, grandmother says loudly. Enough! If the Imperator chose to speak to us in the marketplace like this in the middle of day, then it must have been important. So now, out with it. What did he actually say? You don't believe me! Just turn on the box and watch, Uru says silently, pointing to our media box. Urumer! This time grandmother yells his name like she means business. We both know she wouldn't waste precious digital energy to run the box this early in the day. She even yells at our father if she sees him watching before our evening mealtime. All right, you don't believe me, Uru resumes talking. But Churu did speak about the skyrock and the water and how everyone will die, except the rare few fortunate ones here in Poseidon. He said they will be choosing among us. Choosing how? They who? Hammurabi asked with guarded weariness. They, the Cassiope gods, not the golden sky gods, Uru elaborates. And the nobles, they will be choosing among us, picking the best people in Poseidon to serve them as they escape the death and the skyrock in the water. Escape? Where? How do they escape all this supposed misfortune? I asked to humor him. They're building ships, the kind that fly, but not just ordinary ones that can only rise over rooftops or go over a mountain. These ships will fly so high up into the sky that they will reach the stars. And the Cassiope, together with the nobles, will go inside these great flying starships and escape. And if we get picked, we escape too. Oh, bast, I mutter, rubbing my forehead and nose even as I shake my head at Uru's crazy story. You are being useless right now, Uru. This is shatahak nonsense. If even a tiny grain of this is real, it's bad, and it can't be that bad. Yes, it can. I tell you, it's real and really bad. Uru nods. Also, there's more bad. He pauses slightly, narrows his eyes in fearful anticipation, then rattles off. You know that data pole on our corner? The one that's so hard to see when you're coming from the other street? On the way back here, I was thinking so hard about the bad news that I forgot and crashed into it with my hoverboard, leveled it flat. Both Hammurabi and I exclaimed simultaneously. Again? Oh no, not again, Uru. Crap of a goat, I say angrily. So much babbling when you should have led with that. And that's the end of chapter 2. So here we are. I hope you guys enjoyed the reading. And we're going to have more fun stuff happening throughout the day. And there is one surprise coming, another surprise announcement. And I hope you guys stick around for that. Just watch all the posting areas, watch Facebook, and I think you're going to really love this surprise. So thank you for coming here. Hope you enjoyed. I'm going to see if there's any messages on the comments, if there's anything you guys want to let me know. So let's see, looking around, it looks okay. Everything looked good. Do you have any questions before I hang up on this thing? Because this is ancient Earth. I know you want more, but you will have more soon. Remember, there's Wattpad that's coming. Wattpad will be where you're going to have it posted to read. It's going to be serialized, a chapter at a time, once a week. So it'll be one chapter on Fridays, right? Remember how we used to do that for the other books? So we're going to do it again. And so you're going to have the chapters posted very soon on Wattpad. So stay tuned for the announcement. That's coming later. And I hope you guys enjoyed the story. And it's only, believe me, it's getting to be incredibly exciting. This is just the beginning. So you will meet many more other new characters and some old ones. You will recognize some familiar characters. So there you go. I thank you for listening, and we're going to say bye-bye for now. And I'm hoping that I can record this and save this later, so maybe we can put this onto YouTube at some point, but I don't know if Facebook will let me. Let's hope it does. So we're going to, let's see if there's any more questions. Let's see if we can't wait for the rest of the story, Sandy. Let's see. Any more questions? Alrighty. So as long as you guys get to hear it without the cat, I got a cat bomb. You saw me with a cat walking in there. So anyway, so thank you guys again, and thanks for coming in, and enjoy the rest of the tag holiday. Be sure to enter to win. Remember, there's 4 places to enter. You're going to post in the Astor Daimon and Shoelace Girls group, in the Atlantis Grail Spoilers group, on the tag page, the Facebook page, and in the tag forum and pro board. So 4 places to enter. You just need to comment with the answer to the question, and you can win tea. Amazing packets of, it's a 3-pack of tag tea, which is, I think, let's see if it's Gwenlark tea, the Atlantis Grail cookie tea, and Nikari juice tea. So those are the 3 winning things. And one lucky winner gets a copy of Ace and Black. So there we go. Thank you again. Bye-bye, everybody. I'm going to end the video, and hopefully this stream went through. Bye.